Hello, everyone, and welcome to this riveting webinar edition of Association Chat, where today we are diving deep into a subject that has become unavoidable, unavoidable in contemporary organizational strategy. We're talking about generative artificial intelligence, or as we'll call it from here on out, because it's hard for me to say, Gen AI. I am KiKi L'Italien, your host and the force behind Association Chat, which serves as a sort of intersection for industry leaders, thinkers, and all those who are passionate about driving associations forward. Today, we are here to provoke your thoughts, engage you, to make you think. This is really a webinar that I put together so that I could introduce you to the three things that I think that every association executive needs to ask themselves. And I also put it together, to be quite honest, as a sort of foray into my free ebook that has to do with Chat GPT and associations. By the way, I will put this up periodically, the link in the comments and also across the screen, so that you can download it. It's free. I mean, what could it hurt? But I am curious to hear about your thoughts as you go through, as you look at it, as you read it. And I also am curious to hear about your thoughts as we go through these three things. Now, this is the third version of this webinar that I'm doing. The second was earlier today. And technically, the first one didn't really happen because there were technical difficulties. So, I mean, I guess officially this is the second one that I'm doing. But I already made a lot of changes. In fact, if you attended the one earlier today, you might not even recognize, aside from the sort of background that I have and all of that, you might not even recognize the 3 points that I make today. And the reason why is because I got to thinking about it and I'm like, I'm going to adjust this and I want to move forward from there with some new ideas. Because to be honest, we are facing a lot of questions. And so, are these the only three questions you need to ask yourself? They're an essential three questions that you need to ask yourself. So, with that, I want to go ahead and get started. We are pushing the envelope of traditional discussion to ask three pivotal questions. And the first one that I want to start with is, what is my organization's AI vision? Now, there are a lot of questions that are out there, but this one I think is critical. What is my association's AI vision? And it really marries to what I hear a lot of people asking already, which is, what is the business use case for my organization to use AI? I don't hear a lot of questions about that for AI in general. Like when it comes to, say, an AI newsletter, we've had AI newsletters for several years now. I didn't really hear people talk about needing to have some sort of strategic tie in for what their organization is doing. But I definitely do now that we have generative AI and everyone's asking this question. Not everyone, a lot of people are asking this question. What does my association need to do with AI? How can we incorporate it? Where does it belong? Where does it need to fit in? And so this first question really does tie into that, which is, what is my organization's AI vision? For your AI vision, it really does tie into, what is it that you're trying to do? Now, you may not think that you have much of an AI vision. AI is a tool. You're using it as a tool. So, how does it fit into what you're already trying to do? Well, there are a lot of ways that that is definitely a legitimate question to ask right now. And the reason why is because some of these tools are not only widely available and inexpensive, if not free, but they also provide the ability, if used correctly, to be very, very efficient and to help your employees to do quite a bit and your volunteer leaders to do quite a bit. The only technicality is that you need to be really careful about not uploading proprietary or confidential information. Any sensitive information should not be uploaded to, say, an open source type of tool, right? And so, especially things that are really popular right now, like everybody's favorite darling, Chat GPT. Why is that tempting to do? Why is it a challenge for people? Because it's basically going to take things like you could upload a report, or a volunteer leader could upload a report with a lot of data in it, including names and emails and phone numbers, sensitive data, report data that maybe your institutional members don't want to share out with the public. And especially if you're doing some sort of industry wide measurement, and the anonymity of that is very important. Uploading types of data, even if only used internally, to an open source platform makes it so that you have some possibility of exposing information on servers that you really shouldn't. So figuring out how to anonymize your data, figuring out how to work with it safely is critical. But also figuring out where it makes sense for you to be using it in your AI vision for your organization is for sure a very important question to ask, and an important question to come up with an answer for. The second question that I think that these are questions you can't afford to ignore. And by the way, if you're watching and you want to ask a question, you want to comment on something, or you want to go in a little bit of detail or share something, go ahead and feel free while we're live. I am sharing this in a couple of other places that I wasn't before, so I realize that there are people who are watching from different channels. This second question is, which use cases will differentiate my organization? So, along with the challenges that we have with generative AI, one of the opportunities that we have is for this differentiation that we can see if we employ AI tools in an effective manner. So, which use cases make sense for your association? These are questions that will be different for each organization based on what it is that you're trying to do. So, I'm trying to think of some examples for people who are out there and listening and thinking, "Oh, what? Well, like what?" Here's an example. Say you have data that measures some aspect of what your organization's members what they're trying to track on. And that measurement, I'm being very generic because I don't want to give any information away about people that I've worked with who don't want to share their information. And you're measuring that particular area. It might be a little complicated or controversial, this measurement, and it's not something that your member companies want to share. But it's important for you internally, in order to track how things are advancing, to be able to do that, to be able to track on that. Is there a way that you can use AI to layer in other types of data that you have in order to make that information particularly valuable to your members? So I'm not talking about the piece before where it's about being careful about your proprietary and confidential information. Say you have a closed system. Say you are using AI in a safe and effective manner, or you're anonymizing your data. Whichever the case may be, let's take the risk off of the table and let's think about what kind of use cases could help you. If you were able to take some sort of measurement or some sort of metric that you're tracking that no one else is, and layer it in with other types of data that you have access to from your member organizations, companies, institutions, etc., could that be valuable? Could that be more valuable than something that someone else could provide? Now, this is not unusual in that you probably could provide something like this before. The only difference is that now that we have things like generative AI, and now we have just a lot more inexpensive tools too, to offer business intelligence using AI, right? Now you have a lot more opportunity to be exploring some things like that in creative ways that you can use data in order to not only boost your new streams of revenue, non-dues revenue, but also in ways that you could be thinking about providing value back to your members too. So that's one thought. So which use cases will differentiate my organization? What this requires is to think about data in perhaps a new way if you haven't been thinking about it that way before. For others who have been on this track for a long time, then you'll be very familiar with this question, and you're already probably asking it, 10 times over and wondering how you can layer in new types of technology to make it even more valuable. All right. The third question that I think that you cannot ignore when it comes to AI is how should CEOs or executive directors adapt organizational structures and prepare employees for deployment? When I say deployment, a lot of people in DC might get nervous. So I should probably edit that, including myself, right? Not talking about deployment of individuals, but deployment of AI being used as a tool within your organization. So, how should you prepare your employees? This is something that I would be asking myself very seriously for my staff, and the reason why is because you want your staff and your team to be upskilled. You want them to be effective and efficient, and you want them to be able to come to you solving problems and coming up with solutions that you haven't even thought of yet. And a lot of the tools that we have available to us now have capabilities and allow us to have access to capabilities that we haven't had before. And so because of that, there could be a lot of creative problem solving happening in every facet of your organization if your team is properly skilled and properly trained in using AI. That's something that I think that if I were you, even if I were in middle management, I'd be asking who on my team needs to know more. It's probably everyone. And what are we doing with our volunteer leaders? How are we upskilling people so that they can more effectively be a part of this particular association? Preparing employees for the use of this includes having a policy, includes knowing what you can and cannot do. So things like uploading sensitive member data that, and I got in a conversation with somebody this past week while I was at IMEX in Las Vegas about, how risky is it really to upload confidential information or proprietary information to something like ChatGPT. But I'm going to say it again, that any kind of open source platform, you are putting things at risk. And when that data goes out on open source, like on servers that other people have access to, that other organizations have access to, a lot of our associations have institutional members or corporate members. They have NGOs as members. there's all kinds of associations, right? And so we need to be very, very careful about not just the data that our staff uploads, but also volunteer leaders, because they have access to sometimes some really important information that's out there. Bruce says another factor are competitors to the association, other associations, trade publications, sponsors using generative AI more effectively than the association. That's a really great point. And Bruce, I'm so glad that you could be on here, because I know that Bruce was part of the first group that we had technical difficulties and it just wasn't going to happen. So I'm glad that you're here, Bruce. It is such a great point, because even if you take a Samsung approach. Samsung just made a great big pronouncement this past week that it's not allowing its employees to use any kind of generative AI tools because those things can be accessed, and it was a security issue that they were worried about. Um, I say even beyond the security issue, we're talking about upskilling employees. And the fact is once you're able to start getting into using generative AI, it shifts the way that you think about asking questions, about the benefits that you can provide. It changes the time that it takes to do certain things. And certainly, if there are other competitive associations or for profits, it doesn't matter. Anyone who's competing wherever you do, who has staff that is able to effectively use these tools and think of new ways to offer everything from better customer service to providing better benefits to being able to layer in data in a way that is meaningful. It becomes a serious competitive advantage to whomever has that. So that is a really important way to be thinking about that, Bruce. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. So are there other people, other competitors to your association using Gen AI more effectively than the association? That's an excellent question. One thing that I want to bring up as well is this brings up another underlying question that's sort of been riding through our association universe for quite a while, which is, do you know what data you have? Like, do you know what you're managing? I remember years ago, David DiLorenzo and my sister, Kylie Kaufman, they were doing a presentation, and it was about big data. And David DiLorenzo said, he made a joke and he said, I don't know why everyone's worried about big data. We can't even take care of our little data. And it's so true. It's like we need to get a handle on the data that we have access to. Most often, I run into associations that have just a wealth of information, but they don't always have it organized in a fashion where they even know what they have. And indexing that, going through, certainly if you've ever been through, trying to do some sort of taxonomy work or indexing websites or anything like that, that there's a ton of data that associations often have, right? But do we know how that data is being used? Do we know how our technology partners are using that data? Do our technology partners know how that data is being used and what other technology partners might be using it as well? There's a lot. We're using tons and tons of things, lots and lots of tools, and not always understanding who has access to what. And I do think that the time is coming where we have to have a better grasp on that kind of information and have a better grasp on the agreements that we make with our technology partners who are our friends, but who haven't been asked to provide this kind of information in the past necessarily, or at least not to the level that they probably are being asked for it now. So those are some of the key questions that I see lingering out there. Now, the earlier version that I had, one of the questions that I asked was about what this means for community and associations. This brought up this whole topic of isolation and the fact that just because we have technology already, not even counting AI, not even counting our Gen AI, it hasn't meant that we've been able to successfully make people feel like they belong or like they're in a closer knit community. So now that we have the ability to layer in information that uses the data sources that we have in ways together to give us better insights, will that change anything? Will that change the way that we think about community? Will that change the way that we address things like customer service or ways that we think about providing value back through human relationships? If we base our hypothesis on what has happened in the past, then it doesn't look likely. It looks like we will probably look at these tools and try to figure out ways that we can do all kinds of fancy things with them, but not necessarily focus on how to use them to augment and boost and cultivate community. And maybe that's fine. Maybe it's fine. Or maybe we're missing something that's really important. And we should be thinking about ways that we can use something like Gen AI to foster deeper and better and stronger relationships. That's my take on it. So I hope that this has been interesting for you. And I hope that it's making you ask yourself some questions about this stuff too, because I do think that there are an awful lot of questions that we can explore with this. Now, here is the link to my free ChatGPT book. This book is all about associations in ChatGPT. It goes into the ethics, the ethical use of ChatGPT, challenges, things to be wary of, things to be aware of so that you can take advantage of them. And then I also have this link to my Learning Academy. These courses are for a fee, but it's a really, really low fee. The ethics course is shorter and it talks about AI and ethics for associations. And the other course is a more essentials of AI. And it actually takes you through exercises, helps you to craft a prompt. You get tested along the way. Both of them have tests along the way. And it's pretty good learning, if I do say so myself. I had help from Mission Fuel, and that's Dan Streeter's company, and interviewed him a little bit earlier today. But those are some courses that are available. And I have another one that's coming up that has to do with, a really boring topic about budgeting for your digital strategy. So if you're interested in that, be on the lookout because that's coming your way too. In the meantime, I hope that you begin to look into the questions that we talked about. What is my organization's AI vision? What use cases will differentiate my organization when we're talking about AI? And how should CEOs adapt organizational structures and prepare employees for deployment of AI? I want you to think about these things. Tell me what else is on your mind. Tell me what I missed. Tell me what I got wrong. Tell me what I got right. And let me know what you want to learn about next, because I'm going to try to do some more of these webinars as we lead into some cohorts going through the different workshops that I've got available, the different courses I have available. And I'll be talking a little bit more about those in the weeks to come. So in the meantime, check that out, look into it. Also, if you're in Washington, D.C. on November 6th, there is Association AI Day that I am co-hosting as Association Chat and Amplified Growth with Generative Buzz. That's Jeff Livingston's company. And also with Association Trends. And so if you're going to be in town for AMS Fest, that's first part of November in Washington, D.C., Association AI Day is happening on November 6th. It's a full day, really fantastic speakers, and I hope you can make it. So reach out to me. I've got a 10% discount code that you can use if you need it. And other than that, keep asking questions to learn every day, my friends, because as Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.